everybody, and welcome in to Last Call. I'm Nathaniel Finch. That's Caden Colford. We've got some more guest hosts on for the rest of the show, but we've got so much to talk about. Spring break last week, didn't have a show. We've got a lot that's happened since then. Boy, it's March Madness. We got plenty of basketball to talk about.
March Madness went to spring break. Over spring break, we had one heck of a weekend right here at UINDY. D2 March Madness hosted some awesome games.
Yeah, the D2 regionals in the Midwest was fantastic, and it was a lot of fun there. So we also have some NFL talk. It's the middle of NFL free agency, and with that means that plenty of new players getting traded, signing with teams. We'll have Sam Gailey on a little bit later to talk about some NFL stuff. But first, the topic of conversation: March Madness in basketball. Let's start with D2. We like our UIndy sports, and UIndy hosted the Midwest Regionals, and it was a nice little weekend for Division II basketball. Maybe not as nice for UIndy. They had lost in the first round to McKendree, but boy, this McKendree team coming in as an 8 seed, they made some waves, made it to the championship game here with UMSL, and this was one heck of a game.
This happened to be a rematch of the GLVC Conference Championship, and this game right here just goes to show how tough the GLVC is. We talked about it all year, of course, UIndy battling through all of these teams, and at the end of the season, McKendree and UMSL, they got hot at the right time, and they gave one heck of a game to close out this Midwest Regional. So much to love with both of these teams. McKendree, Milos Vicentic. I mean, the more I watch this guy, the more I love his game. A true big man.
Man, he is very, very impressive. He had himself a great game as well here. 19 points, 6 rebounds. It was actually his worst game in the last month or so because he'd been putting up some incredible numbers. Against UIndy, he had 26. He put up over 30 in that quarterfinal game against Northern Michigan. He had himself one heck of a tournament, but UMSL, I mean, they were just too much to handle here. They're going to move on to the Elite Eight, and it came down to the wire. We'll show you all the highlights here, but how about this Isaiah Fuller guy? My goodness, 27 points. He did it all by himself. Tournament MVP. He had himself one heck of a weekend.
UMSL has so many weapons. Matt Enright, a point guard who can pull it from deep, so lethal from out there. Bowen Sandquist. You add Drew Sissy in there, Victor Wabarocha, and of course Isaiah Fuller, like you said, one heck of a game from him. So much volume, and you never know where that offense is going to come from with this team.
And look at this juncture of the game. I mean, UMSL's up by 14 all of a sudden. McKendree starts to claw back. A 14-point deficit with about 10 minutes left. It's tough to overcome, and they even kept starting to pour it on there. It was just an impressive display of basketball to come out of the locker room for UMSL. McKendree, though, and they found a way to start chipping back at the lead. You see it right here. This lead, pretty insurmountable, but you know what? Bryson Boltman, he's a heck of a basketball player.
No, this is a very, very gritty team. We go back to the early parts of the year. In January, they played UIndy and got smoked by the Greyhounds. But now it's tournament time. You throw that record out the window. They came as an 8 seed. They're really embracing that underdog mentality, and you can tell that they're just going out there to play. They're playing hard. Guys 1 through 5 on the court all have a job to do, and they do it well. And, I mean, you can't ask for more from a team.
UMSL's the better team, probably the best team in the GLVC. Obviously, UIndy won that regular season title. McKendree won the conference tournament title. But UMSL's been that team all year. They've just had stretches where they fall behind. They don't play their best basketball. But today they played their best basketball. I mean, look at this. Suddenly you cut the lead. It was down as many as 19. Now it's down to 5 with 4 minutes left. I mean, come on. This was wild. McKendree really wanted it, and they end up tying it up here in just a couple more highlights, as we'll see. It was a very fun game to watch, and it was really good for UIndy, getting a little bit of exposure to their campus, getting some people out to Nickerson Hall. First time that they had hosted in over 30 years. It was a nice little weekend, and UIndy TV, we produced all 7 of the games. That was a lot of fun as well.
It was so much fun. We saw tons of performances. Like, how about Max Bjorklund, 36 for Northern Michigan against Hillsdale, and then Peter Kaltoff of Hillsdale also adding 28 of his own. It was an action-packed weekend, and like you said, great for UIndy and great for us. We had the honor of calling all of those games. Such an exciting weekend.
Yeah, and you just saw that game-winning layup, about 20 seconds left from Isaiah Fuller. There's never been an easier tournament MVP pick than him, and he had himself one heck of a game. UMSL wins by 2. And they'll move on to the Elite Eight. That plays tomorrow night. Of course, they're down in Evansville at the Ford Center. They'll play Nova Southeastern. So you've got Tuesday basketball in the Elite Eight. Your Final Four is going to be on Thursday, and one more day break. Saturday is going to be the national championship for Division II. So, hey, you're in the Indy area, you want to go check out some good basketball, go watch the national championships. Just about 3 hours south. Should be a fun little weekend, and we wish UMSL the best. good work representing the GLVC. We hope that they can make some waves here this week.
Awesome conference. Awesome ending to the season for this GLVC conference, and looking to see some more from them.
When we come back, we've got March Madness, and you know what, let me let you in on a little secret. Let's go to camera 2 here. This guy sitting to my right, it's his birthday yesterday, Caden. You can't go further in the show without saying that. Happy birthday, my guy.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Let's step aside. When we come back, Division I March Madness. That's next.
Hey, it's Giselle here on 88.7 WICR.
88.7 The Diamond, the only jazz and classical station in Indianapolis, completely led by the students of the University of Indianapolis. Listen to us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn app, FM radio, HD radios, or even on our website at wicronline.org, a different kind of public radio.
Welcome back to Last Call. Nathaniel Finch, Caden Colford, and now Jake Lane joins us for this little segment, March Madness. It's our first show since the NCAA tournament started, and boy, they call it March Madness for a reason. How about we start with this IU game that we saw last night? IU winning their first game in that round of 64, and then they get to play Miami, a 4 or 5 seed matchup. Didn't quite go as planned. Let's take a look at those highlights. Take a look here. I mean, it was a close game for a good chunk of it. Trace Jackson Davis doing his thing, and you know, in Indiana, a nice start once they got past that initial run from Miami. Really did a good job in that second half at the beginning.
Trace was, he was doing everything he could, right? Especially on the defensive end, sending shots back left and right. But Miami and the pace of Miami, they went up and down with this team for 40 minutes, and IU just simply couldn't keep up.
Yeah, they really couldn't keep up once Miami got hot, but Indiana didn't take advantage of opportunities. There was one point where they got a steal. Miller Cobb got a steal, ran down the court, and then jacked up a 3. Miami got the rebound, came back and scored, and then they went on a 7-0 run. It was opportunities like that Indiana missed out on, and just Miami was a fast-paced team all night, and not being able to slow them down is what ultimately cost them the game.
Much worse for Purdue. You see here, down in the second half against the number 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. It's only happened twice in the history of March Madness where a 16 seed upsets that number 1 seed and leave it to Purdue to be that second team to do so.
Well, Jake, you said it. They made history, right? They're going down in the history books. Probably not for the right reason, though. All credit to FDU. They came out ready to play. They were busting their butts on both ends of the court, and it's no small task even containing a Zach Edey the way they did.
Zach Edey is 7'4". Your average roster size is 6'1" if you're Fairleigh Dickinson. You are so undermanned. They have got the shortest team in Division I, and yet somehow they get the best of Purdue. How the heck does that happen?
Yeah, and they're not even supposed to be in the tournament. They didn't win their conference championship. It just happened that the team they played hasn't been in Division I long enough, so that happened like that. And Zach Edey's not a guy. He showed that he's not a guy that can be the guy for the team. He needs guys around him, and guys like Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith just didn't come to play, and they're freshmen, and you'll have that. But it ultimately showed. It showed throughout the season. It's kind of just a whole collection of how the season has gone for Purdue.
Rough games for 2 Indiana squads, but it doesn't mean that they had bad seasons, right? Overall thoughts on IU and Purdue seasons?
IU was a little up and down, right? Purdue, at the beginning of the season, you thought that they were going to be favorites for national champs. Then we get to this point right here, and obviously it was a different outcome. Very, very solid season for Purdue, Big Ten champs, so can't complain there.
Yeah, it's definitely a stinky feeling for Purdue, but coming into the season, what did anybody expect of them? A middle-of-the-pack Big Ten team. They come away with the Phil Knight championship early in the season, a Big Ten championship outright. They got the tournament and the regular season. Of course, this isn't how you wanted it to end, but Purdue played themselves into a first seed. I don't think they were a 1 seed caliber team, if that makes much sense. I think this has to be a success for them. Indiana, though, they played better towards the end of the season, but I think they were the bigger down. The had the worst season than Purdue when they should have definitely been better.
There definitely were high hopes for IU at the beginning of the season. You heard IU fans talking, oh, it's a banner season. We're going to put up another banner at Assembly Hall. Well, I mean, some games it looked like they could have won a national championship, and then some games it seemed like they didn't deserve to be in the tournament at all. So it was just anybody's guess how they were going to play last night, and they just didn't come out on top.
I mean, that's a perfect way to describe their weekend, right? Friday played fantastic, easily cruised past that first round game, and then you get to Sunday and it's like, what team are we watching here? And even in that game, started down 13-3 in that early hole, came back, fought really hard, was a different team, and then they went back to being that team that's kind of laying down. So it's just so much of a roller coaster for this squad, and I think that's a great way to describe the season.
Yeah, it definitely stinks for them losing Jalen Hood-Schifino, and he was one of those guys that he could turn it on for a game, and then the next one it just kind of, you don't know what's going on. And that kind of happened last night. He was missing shots that you'd expect him to hit, and now what? Does he go to the NBA draft? And
I mean, he's going to be a first-round pick, probably lottery pick if he does.
Yeah.
But honestly, I mean, he can stay another year. That's going to be his squad. He's going to be in the running for one of the top players in the nation. I wouldn't mind seeing him stay at IU, but I mean, when you can go make your money, you got to make your money, right? What do we think?
Exactly. But then what does Zach Edey do? And he's in the same conversation. Maybe not a lottery pick, bottom of the second round, but that's money there. And Purdue does not get the booster money like a lot of these other big schools. So, I mean, it's definitely a bigger conversation for someone like him.
All right, let's move on. How about the rest of March Madness? This time, some more positives. Obviously, the two Indiana teams not doing too good, but how about this one? San Diego State and Furman will start it off with this early Saturday game. You know, big win for San Diego State here as they move on, and they're, suddenly they got some good. They got to feel good about their tournament chances.
No, San Diego State a very, very strong showing against a tough Furman team, right? In the first round, they had a very, very strong game and a statement win with this one.
How about Micah Parrish, 16 points, 6 rebounds, everything working for him. And, the Aztecs, they just played very well.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, Furman coming off that huge win against Virginia. Those are the teams that are hard to beat because you don't know what you're going to get. But then it's almost like the Cinderella magic runs out. Apparently, Purdue's the only team that can't beat 13 seeds.
Well, I thought we were going to move past Purdue, but here we are. It's tough to do so. Let's move on to our next game. Duke and Tennessee. This was built up to be one of the best of this entire tournament, and it definitely did not disappoint. Tennessee, nice little early lead, did a good job holding on to it, ended up winning that one 65-52.
Yeah, there was a lot. Duke stayed in the game for a while. Every time Tennessee would get on a run, Duke would answer right back, and then towards the end, Duke just had nothing defensively, and then Tennessee kind of got away with it.
How about Oliver Kamwa with 27 points, 5 rebounds, everything working for him, and Tennessee, suddenly they are rolling. They got to be the favorites, at least for the region. No,
they look really good. On the side of Duke, it was hard knowing what to expect from them. Coming off a loss of Coach K, some new faces on the roster, making it to the tournament, making it this far. It's not a win, but it's a pretty solid side if you're a Duke fan.
I think it's a good season for them overall, and it was just tough because after that first round game, when they got the blowout win on Friday, you thought that, this could potentially be a team that makes a run. I personally had them pegged to go to the Final Four, and it didn't quite pan out, but I think that they really did a good job turning it on late. Good season for them. Let's move on to our next game. We're going to just keep hitting these back and forth and back and forth. Plenty to talk about with our March Madness. How about this? Kansas and Arkansas. Who would have thought the defending champ's going to fall to Arkansas here?
I was telling you before we get on here, Nathaniel, Kansas was my pick to win it, and I should have known after their big loss to Texas right before the tournament started that was a red flag, but I didn't listen to myself. Kansas, not a great pick.
Who would have thought the last 5 years defending champs failed to make the Sweet 16? Would have been nice to know before it filled out the bracket, but we'll remember that for next year.
Yeah. It's unfortunate for Kansas. I had them in my championship game. I didn't have them winning, but certainly did not expect them to go out this early. Just how well they played when it matters, really. It's a very good team, and certainly did not expect them to not be playing going forward.
Came down to the wire. You see here free throws at the end of the game, and it was Arkansas. Got the win. Devonta Davis, 25 points, 8 boards, and Arkansas upset the defending champs. Of course, without head coach Bill Self with that medical scare, still recovering. Wished him the best, but the three of us are fools thinking that they would make it to the championship game. That's what we all had pegged for them. How about we move on? Let's talk about Missouri and Princeton. The number 15 seed from Jersey. We've heard this story before, right? How about Princeton upsetting Missouri, upsetting Arizona earlier before that? I mean, this is a fun team. This year's Cinderella.
Princeton, right? Who would have thought an Ivy League school like this, making it to this level? at this stage, performing the way that they are, this looks like a great basketball team. Don't count them off because of their name or the reputation of their school. This looks like an elite basketball team that can make some noise and already has.
We think they can continue to make a run. You think Princeton's run is over? Can they continue?
I don't know. I think this looks like a legit, you got Cinderella schools that come in and they win a couple games here and there, and then they're gone by after the round of 32. But this Princeton team, they look legit.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many people had Princeton coming this far. I know I didn't. Princeton was definitely a first-round exit for me, but hey, that's why they call it March Madness, right? I mean, you can look at seeds, you can look at stats, but I always say you have to throw that out come March.
Another number 1 seed on the docket, Houston at Auburn. Things did not look that good. I mean, look at this point. Auburn, they got the lead going into halftime. They continue to pour it on. Did not look that good for the Cougars, but they show why they're a 1 seed late in the game.
Yeah, they really did show why they are a 1 seed. And, they didn't have a great first half and majority of the game. And they turned it on late in the second half. Houston looks hard to beat. Like, after that, I don't know who's going to knock Houston off.
And there was a lot of talk during the season, well, Houston didn't really have that hard of a schedule. Is Houston really, should they be up there in that top 5 power ranking? Well, it looks like they should have been the way they're playing in tournament time.
I mean, come on, the way that they poured on here. You go down at half, and all of a sudden you win 81-64. That's one heck of a blowout being down at halftime. They look like a different team coming out of the locker room. Kudos to them, and I'm sure they got to be one of the favorites here remaining in this field as well. How about our next game, Penn State and Texas? Texas getting the win here. Another back-and-forth one. I mean, this is what March is all about.
Yeah, Penn State really came on late. They got to the Big Ten championship in the tournament. They played well. I didn't expect them to win this game, but they put themselves in a position certainly to. It's just an unfortunate way to end the season, but Penn State played a very, very good second half of the season especially, and they've got a lot to look forward to.
Good second half of this game. I mean, look, 4 minutes to go and they were up. Texas ends up making this 8-0 run, and, they'll continue to climb there, but Dylan DeSude, 28 points, 10 boards, couldn't stop him, and Penn State, their magic just ran out. But when you're a team that can shoot the threes like this team can, you can hang in almost any game. It was impressive to see the run that they made late in this season.
In Texas, right? They're just that good. They came out, they look scary. We were talking about Houston looks scary. There's another team in that Lone Star State. Texas, you can never count them out.
UCLA Northwestern, our next game. Boy, another good one. This one ended UCLA by 5, but it was close throughout. It was a fun game here.
UCLA in their conference championship, that was against Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. They actually lost that game, but they looked good, and they've really turned it on now that it came into the tournament. Northwestern, I was saying it earlier a couple weeks ago, they have a knack for knocking off big teams at big moments, but UCLA pulled this one out.
When UCLA ended the regular season receiving votes for the number 1 team in the nation in the AP poll. You talked about that little conference championship hiccup, but this is a squad that can really do some damage here.
Yeah, UCLA definitely has the opportunity to run it back this year like they did in 2021 when they lost to Gonzaga at Lucas Oil Stadium. They've got some vengeance. They want to win some games here.
My number 1 team, my national champion, Alabama. We'll talk about them here next. Let's take a look at these highlights as Bama and Maryland was not that close of a game. This is one where Alabama controlled really from wire to wire.
In Alabama, they've been surrounded by controversy considering Brandon Miller and his run-in with the law, if you want to call it that.
We know the situation, for sure.
But, I mean, this guy's a basketball player. Plain and simple, when it's time to turn it on, this guy puts the ball in the hoop, and that's the name of the game.
Yeah, it's definitely worth noting that dealing with what he's dealt with, he's just, not shed away from the light. He has turned it on. He is carrying his team, and now he's carrying his team into March, and we'll see what he can do. Alabama is my favorite to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Brandon Miller, 19 points, 7 rebounds. Javon Quinterly had 22 points. It's a team that can score in bunches as a unit. It's not just led by one player. It's been pretty impressive to watch. Our next game, Pittsburgh and Xavier. Xavier with the big win here. And, it was pretty back and forth for a while, but Xavier just too much to handle at the end of it.
Yeah, they closed the game, but they didn't close it how you would have expected. They had a big lead. It took a while for them to get to the end there, and Pitt certainly had Xavier on the ropes a little bit. They're going to have their hands full coming up with Texas.
And it's crazy to think Xavier actually dropped the game to Butler this year, and they're in the tournament playing like this. You just wouldn't think that after watching this game. How about 6 players in double figures? There's not a guy on Xavier that's going to go out and drop 30 on you. There's not a guy to specifically prepare for on this team. It's just kind of a pick your poison, and it suits well for them.
I mean, their top scorer, averaging 15 points a game, got hurt beginning of February. They're doing a great job to kind of fill that void. And, you know, this you talked about, they're going to have their hands full for Texas, but it's a team that I got pegged to go pretty far. I like Xavier's chances here. They play very well as a unit. Hey, our next game, Kansas State and Kentucky. We're getting towards the night slate of last night. Kansas State wins this one 75-69. And, man, this was a nail-biter.
Yeah, certainly. Kansas State is a very good basketball team, and they kind of flew under the radar, especially in the early half of the season, and they have turned it on lately. Keontae Johnson, there you saw him right there. What a stud.
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. They kind of flew under the radar. Coming in, nobody really pegged Kansas State as a team to look out for, but they're putting everybody on notice, knocking off a big name in Kentucky.
I mean, how often is a 3 seed underdogs to the 6 seed like these guys were, and yet they were able to come out and get the win? Marquise Noel, 27 points, 9 assists. I mean, come on, this was an impressive performance from Kansas State, and they definitely earned this one against a tough Kentucky squad.
And it's crazy the pedestal that we put these names on, right? Like we see Kentucky, we see Duke, we see these blue bloods in the tournament. We're like, okay, we're going to send them deep, just like Kansas. I sent Kansas to the national championship, but I mean, it's teams like Princeton, teams like Kansas State that kind of, I don't want to say come out of nowhere, but come and just surprise us come March.
But you know what, Caden? We don't always give the respect to every blue blood. How about Michigan State? No one had them picked to do anything coming into this tournament, and they got a couple big wins. Look at this one against Marquette. Ended up defeating the number 2 seed. This Michigan State, Tom Izzo-led squad, I mean, they can do some damage here in this Sweet 16.
Yeah, glad to see Izzo representing the Big Ten very well, the only Big Ten team remaining in the tournament. But Izzo builds his teams for March. He's always competitive when it comes to March. A few years ago, they beat Zion Williamson and Duke in the tournament. They just always are ready to compete when it comes to March. They didn't have a great season necessarily. They had the double bye in the tournament, but they're on fire right now.
Come March, right? That's Tom Izzo's brand. That's this entire team's brand. I mean, throughout the regular season, I don't want to say it again, but another team that I don't know if we necessarily saw coming this far as a 7 seed, but all credit to Tom Izzo. This guy can build a squad.
Yeah. It's the best part of March Madness is seeing these underdogs come through and make some great moves here in the tournament. Hey, our next team, UConn defeating St. Mary's 70-55. The score here, you know, this is not quite the game that we thought we'd see from St. Mary's here as a 5 seed, but UConn, they're looking pretty good.
UConn just dominated in the paint this game. They had a size advantage in Adoma Sanogo, 24 points and 8 rebounds for him, and he was a monster throughout, and St. Mary's just didn't have an answer for him at all.
Yeah, UConn came to play, and they're going to be tough to knock off here this week. I just think they definitely brought something that St. Mary's was not ready for.
I mean, you talked about the performance from Sunogo, 24 points, but they had 6 players in double figures, so it wasn't just him dominating. They had everybody getting things going in this game, and it was very impressive here for UConn. You see that, I mean, this game was over halfway through the second half.
And UConn, that was a team that was really good coming into the season. If I'm not mistaken, they were ranked really high up in men's basketball. They kind of fell, but now they're turning it back on when things start to matter.
Creighton and Baylor, our next game. How about Pacers, Andrew Nemhard, his brother here, Ryan Nemhard, 30 points. Basketball just runs in this Nemhard family, doesn't it?
These guys are like explosives. You never know when a Nemhard is going to go off, but hey, when it matters, that's the best time to do it. A 30 bomb in the NCAA tournament is crazy.
It's wild, and you never know what to expect from Big East teams. They didn't have the conference wasn't that great this year. The top of it certainly was, but you didn't know what to expect. And Creighton certainly came to play, and I think Creighton has a lot of people around the country backing them right now.
They have a lot of potential here. They can really do some damage in the Sweet 16 as well. You know, I mean, if I were to redo things, I think I'd pick Creighton to go a little bit further. They're a good squad.
No, they look good. And I talked about names and how they hold some kind of pedestal in March. Baylor is one of those names in the last couple of years that people have really touted to go deep into March. And I don't want to say that they've been a disappointment, but it's teams like Creighton that are knocking off these big names, and it's making March so much fun as it always is.
Fairleigh Dickinson, Florida Atlantic University. Our final or second to final game, that is, actually, as we'll take a look here. This was one heck of a game here as well. It was pretty close. FAU came into this game 15.5-point favorites. Everyone seemed to think they would dominate, and FDU, I mean, as if we've learned anything these last few days, they don't just lay down. Yeah,
they went on a 19-4 run late and got the game within one, and they came to play just like they did on Friday night. And I thought they might get away with one, and that would have been wild to see a 15 seed and a 16 seed both make it to the Sweet 16. 16 seeds never done it before. I thought FDU had the potential to be that first team to do it.
I think they did too when they come out and they play with a chip on their shoulder. They know that they weren't necessarily supposed to be in this tournament, but if you were to turn these games on, they look like they are in their element. Obviously, they didn't end up pulling this one out, but it's no surprise, no question, they deserve to be here.
78-70, that final score. Now our last game, Gonzaga. We talk about Blue Bloods, this team always getting here to the Sweet 16. Drew Timme having himself a big game against TCU, 28 points, 8 rebounds. You saw a couple there. How about this Gonzaga squad? I mean, they started low. They started down like they are now, but they came back and really started to pour things on.
I feel like I've been watching Drew Timme in March for 5-10 years.
Right?
But this guy, he has it figured out. He's been there, and that's a huge lift to a team, and you can tell he's the center of this team. I mean, he can kick the ball out. He can shoot. His post play is excellent, and I don't know if there's another guy you want on your team. I mean, higher than Drew Timme in March.
Yeah, Gonzaga's definitely an interesting team, right, for them. You know, they're always in the top 25 throughout the season. They're always right there. Undefeated season a couple years ago. You know what you're getting, but then come March, they kind of just fizzle out. I don't think that's the case here with this Gonzaga team. I'm interested to see what they do.
All right, guys, who wins the national championship? What are we thinking?
I'm going to take Alabama. I really like how Brandon Miller is playing, and I like how the team is playing as a whole.
Houston's been dominant. I have to go with Houston on both sides of the ball, the way they play. They're an efficient team. Give me Houston.
That game against Auburn doesn't scare you?
Not at all.
All right. Well, I picked Alabama going into this tournament. I'm going to stay steady with these guys. I think the Crimson Tide going to continue to represent as that #1 overall seed. Hey, when we come back, we switch away from basketball. We're going to talk some football, NFL free agency. That's next. Sam Gailey's going to come on to talk with us on Last Call.
Award-winning news coverage. Brought to you by ethical journalists that care about you. We have you covered on crime, latest on sports, and the best in entertainment. This is UINDY TV News.
Back here on Last Call, Nathaniel Finch, Caden Colford, and we have Sam Gailey now to talk some NFL stuff. Hey, real quick, how about we talk about some of the best signings, best trades, and the best remaining free agents here in the NFL?
To give you guys a Cliff Notes version, I've been following this all week, all these past 2 weeks actually. Like obviously we got A-Rod to the Jets. That's a huge impact, at least for my Patriots. Definitely we're now the worst team in the division officially. I could argue against the Dolphins, but that let me down a little bit. You got Ezekiel Elliott getting released by the Cowboys, and he's one of my big free agents that are still on the list. A couple other ones include, where is Odell Beckham going to go? Where is he going to fit in the future of the NFL if he is going to come back? And a couple other ones. I got C.J. Gardner-Johnson actually just signed with the Lions 1 year, $8 million. I think it's a quality pick for the Lions. They're going to be dangerous next year. The Lions are going to be dangerous.
Here's a couple names for you. How about Bobby Wagner, Dalton Schultz, couple remaining free agents? These are some big impact names.
No, definitely. Bobby Wagner, he's the veteran. He's going to come in there. He's going to anchor your defense. He's going to make sure everybody is where he needs to be, and that's every NFL team needs one of those.
He's that veteran presence. Then we talk about Dalton Schultz. He's been a very, very solid fantasy quarterback the last couple of years, at least on my roster. So you got to think some teams looking for an older tight end to put to their roster.
Well, Sam, here in the near future, we will give you a lot more time. We'll talk about some NFL for longer. But today we got to finish off the show. It was a loaded one for sure. Nathaniel Finch, Caden Colford, Sam Gailey. We thank Jake Lane here on Last Call.